Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have very big news coming out of the Middle East. Today we've gotten word that Iran's parliament has approved the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and we await a final decision from Iran's National Security Council. Meanwhile, despite major airstrikes by the United States, it appears the Fordow nuclear site is not completely destroyed, and the Iranians might have evacuated the enriched uranium before the strikes even took place. We also have major news of a major Iranian attack on Israel this morning, and major counterattacks by the Israelis on a major Iranian airport. And finally, we have news that the Iranian proxy forces are likely preparing to retaliate on US bases in the Middle East and in the domestic 50 states. So we have very big news today, and let's jump right into it in our first post here, which goes to Fightux Network. And this right here is probably our biggest story of the day. We are getting word from Al Arabia and Reuters that the Iranian parliament has approved the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and the final decision rests with the national security authorities. Now, this is a very big deal right here because, of course, closing the Strait of Hormuz, that would be a very aggressive action against the United States and the West, and would clearly target Western vessels trying to transit through the strait. So this is a very big one, and Iran had threatened this previously, and it looks like it has been approved by the Iranian parliament, and right now a final decision is currently being awaited from the national security authorities. So it appears to be probably likely that this will be approved by Iran's national security authorities, and if it is approved, that is going to be the new aggression that the United States is going to be dealing with by the Iranians in the midst of everything else. So a very big story right there, and we will be watching that one very closely. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Fightux News. And in the meantime, while we're hearing about the news about the Strait of Hormuz, we're also getting some damage reports about the Fordow nuclear site, and today we've heard from the Israeli military sources that in their initial analysis, they believe the Fordow nuclear facility has sustained serious damage from the US strike, but that it's not been completely destroyed despite reports to the contrary, according to two Israeli officials being reported by the New York Times. Now, this is a big one right here, as we actually watched yesterday on our stream live the statements from the United States president claiming the facility was wiped out completely and basically wiped off the menu. So today we are hearing from the Israelis that apparently that is not the case, at least in their assessment, and it appears to be that while the facility was seriously damaged, it is not completely destroyed according to the Israelis. So that's going to cause a bit of an issue here, because the objective was to wipe out Fordow, to make sure there was no remnant of it left, so that way the Iranians couldn't fix it, rebuild it, and also start using it once again. But right now it appears that is not the case. So that is actually unfortunate news and kind of bad news right there, and it sounds like either a second strike is needed, or maybe they're just going to abandon the plans to destroy Fordow altogether. It's not really clear right now, but apparently it's not destroyed, so it's kind of bad news on that front. But moving on to our next post here, this one goes to John Pollock. And this right here might be the smoking gun at the Fordow nuclear facility, because it seems like the Iranians might have gotten tipped off somehow through their intelligence or maybe an inside source about these upcoming attacks on the Fordow nuclear facility. Because right here we can see that in this post from John Pollock, there's apparently some Maxar satellite images showing a possible increase in logistics at Fordow. About 16 trucks were gathered on the 19th through the 20th of June, which is just a couple of days ago, and we also saw in these photos heavy machinery near the entrance to the main facility. So this is a bad sign. This indicates that somehow Iran knew this was coming, and they somehow evacuated some of the enriched uranium out of this facility based on these images we're seeing right here. So taking a look here at our first image, you can see there appears to be vehicles lined up in the road here right next to the Fordow facility, and it looks like there's maybe some heavy equipment, maybe dump trucks perhaps, that are out here on this road near the entrance to the facility itself. So that's not very good. And moving on to our next post here, you can see there are some of the entrances to the Fordow facility, and there's also some trucks out here that are also on the road that we can see in this image right here. And moving on to our last and third image, you can see that there's a lot of more trucks right there lined up to the entrance, and it looks like they were trying to get out some material of some sort, and considering that enriched uranium was being stored here, and that was the high value material that the United States was trying to take out, it's only logical to assume that they must have evacuated the enriched uranium out of this facility before it was struck. So to say that's bad news, that is an understatement. It looks like the Iranians did get the jump on this one, and they got most of the equipment and also most of the materials out of this facility before it was struck. So not good, and right now the initial assessment is that they mostly got it out. So with that, moving on to our next post here, this one goes to Fightux News once again, and we do have confirmation from Israeli officials about the worst case scenario. And we can see right here in the post from Fightux that the Israeli officials also said it appeared that Iran did indeed move equipment, including uranium, from the site. So that is confirmation of the worst case scenario, and right now we're really not clear where they moved the uranium to. So that's a big one, and we'll have to keep an eye on that to see exactly where this is going to go and if they've located where the uranium went. We are aware of some other sites that were struck by the United States the other night, but so far we're not sure if the new site for the uranium was struck in these attacks that we saw last night. So we're currently waiting confirmation to hear exactly where this is going to go, considering the fact that the uranium is now missing, essentially. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to 56 News once again. And we've also gotten some satellite footage of the Fordow nuclear facility, and it shows here the 6 MOP entrance holes over the Fordow nuclear site. And we see right here in the imagery, which was provided by 56 News from Maxar, you can see there are 3, and there's another 3 down here at the bottom. These are the MOP entrance holes, the major munitions that were dropped by the B-2 stealth bombers on this facility. You can see there is the damage from them on each side of the entrances here. So we were told that the B-2s were actually targeting the very sensitive areas of this facility, mainly the ventilation shafts and things like that, which were weak points of this facility, so that way it could destroy it underneath. And apparently that was what was hit. It was the entrances to this facility that were struck mainly using these MOP munitions. So a very big hit, and we can see that here from the satellite footage. But moving on to our next post, this one goes to Michael A. Horowitz. And real quick, just to recap what facilities were hit last night, it was the Natanz facility, the Isfahan facility, and the Fordow facility. We just got done looking at the damage to Fordow, so let's move on to the second one here. This is Natanz. We do have a video here from Michael showing Natanz about 20 kilometers afar, and it was posted by Iranian opposition channels, and apparently it does show some of the residual damage from this facility after it was struck by the Americans. So let's take a look at the video and see the damage here on camera. So as we can see right here, this is a very grainy video, but this is allegedly the Natanz facility about 20 kilometers away from a roadway, and it does appear to be that there's either a lot of smoke in the air or there's something clearly going on that's amiss here, but we really can't see very much due to the distance from the road and also due to the grainy quality of the footage. So sadly we can't see much, but there is a small glimpse of what Natanz is currently looking like. It appears to be a hell of a lot of smoke in that area, if I am seeing that correctly through this very grainy potato footage right here. But very interesting to see from the roadway near Natanz. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Clash Report, and we also got some satellite images of the Natanz facility after the MOPs were dropped on it. So taking a look at our first satellite image here, this is a before photo of the Natanz facility that we can see right here, and as you can see, there's clearly 2 major roadways and arteries here that are going through this facility on the top of it. But moving on to our after photo right here, you can see there is the damage from it. It looks like the top of the facility has been basically erased, and you see here one large hole in the middle of this facility, and it looks like the main artery roads here have been pretty much wiped off the map that we can see right here. So clearly a lot of damage, but we are not really sure what the damage was underneath because obviously we can't see that, but this is the damage from the air, and you can see here a clear entrance hole right there in the middle of the facility. So very interesting to see right here on satellite, and very good for a broad perspective. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Fintech News yet again. So what is the aftermath of this entire situation? And right now we are hearing about the aftermath. We're hearing about preparations for an Iranian retaliation right this very second, and right here we're seeing that Bahrain has told 70% of its government employees to work from home on Sunday until further notice following the U.S. attacks on Iran, according to their Civil Service Bureau. Also, local media report that Bahrain set up at least 33 shelters to be able to house people in case there is an attack on their territory. Now, Bahrain does serve as a pretty important naval port for the Americans, but the Americans have already fled that port. We've left it so that way the Iranians could not attack our ships. So we've already planned for that, but Bahrain is trying to take their best interest into consideration here, and they're telling people to stay off the roadways, they're setting up shelters, and they're telling the government employees to work from home. So clearly, they are worried about a retaliation attack by the Iranians on their territory, probably for housing the American naval ships. So we are seeing that right this second. But moving on to our next post here, this one goes to World Source News 24/7. We've also gotten word from an Iranian proxy force today that the Yemeni rebels have now declared that their ceasefire with the United States has officially ended. Now, there was apparently a ceasefire in place, but the ceasefire was very loose. It was a very, I guess you could say, uneasy ceasefire. Now, the Yemeni rebels just got taught a pretty good lesson by the Americans when we bombed the hell out of them just about a month or two ago, and it looks like they've forgotten that lesson again. So they're now declaring that their ceasefire is over, and apparently that means they're going to try to attack some U.S. bases or U.S. assets in the region. And of course, the proxy forces are expected to act up quite badly, and this is the first sign of that. So it truly is the calm before the storm right now. We're waiting to see exactly what is going to happen with these proxy forces. And in the meantime, while the proxy forces are acting up quite badly, we're seeing that Israel is teaching the Iranians another lesson, and today we've seen a major attack on Iran's Bushehr airport, which was attacked with Israeli airstrikes, and we have seen here on video apparently some footage of it. So let's take a look. And right there, you see there's the Bushehr airport, which clearly just went up in a humongous plume of smoke and fire right there on camera. That is from Israeli airstrikes that we're seeing on that location. So it looks like the Bushehr airport, which is very close to the Bushehr nuclear power plant, has been gone up in smoke at this point. Of course, we've not heard of any direct attacks on the Bushehr power plant, the nuclear plant, and none are expected as of right now. But we are seeing the airport, which is nearby, getting absolutely hammered and pounded by the Israelis right this second. So a very big attack to note and a big one to watch as well. But jumping into our next one, this one goes to Fightux News yet again. And we've also gotten word that the Israeli Air Force also struck an IRGC base in Iran's Yazd province, about 1,800 kilometers or so from Israel, according to an IDF military spokesperson. So let's take a look at this footage and see this IRGC base clearly going up in smoke, and also it appears to be that there might be some rocket fuel that went up in it as well. So let's take a look at the footage. And there you have it. Look at that, an IRGC base gone up in blazes right there. And there's also some of that signature orange smoke over there on the left. That does indicate a rocket propellant of some sort that has gone up. And they must have been storing some of that there at this base. They're zooming in right there. You can see some more. There is the smoke. And also on the left, there is that orange smoke, which is extremely toxic. And it seems like the Iranian public doesn't know how toxic that is, because I've seen people drive straight through it when it crosses the road. So I don't know why that is, but apparently the Iranians don't know about toxic propellant. So here you can see right here on the side of a mountain, the IRGC is taking a really bad pounding, and this is in the Yazd province of Iran. We did see that conducted by the Israeli Air Force a short while ago. So very interesting to see. But moving on to our next post here, this one's going to go to OSINT Technical. And unfortunately, we do have some news of Iranian attacks on Israel. And shortly after we ended our live stream last night, the Iranians launched a very large ballistic missile attack on Tel Aviv and populated areas inside of Israel, targeting once again civilians, not military infrastructure. The Iranians are back to targeting purely civilians, it seems like. And we see here in this video the aftermath of an Iranian ballistic missile impact in Tel Aviv this morning. And once again, this is some bad footage right here, and it looks like there were several confirmed impacts around Tel Aviv and in Israel. So let's take a look at the damage and see just how bad it really was. So as you can see right here, a pretty bad attack. This is actually awful right here. It looks like a direct impact to this area here. I can't tell if this was an apartment complex or what this was. Clearly it looks like a neighborhood to me. So it looks like this was a direct impact on this neighborhood and probably caused some casualties, I'd imagine, as well. Sadly, I don't have the number on hand to let you know what the casualties were from this event, but it looks to be quite catastrophic. So a very bad sight to see. But we also have an overhead view as well, showing some overhead pictures of this event. And here it is. This is a lot of damage right here. You can see the roofs of these houses have completely been ripped off. It looks like the side of this building over here on the left has been basically blasted out, and there's just debris everywhere. So a very bad hit in Tel Aviv right here that we did see on camera. But moving on to our next post here, this one's going to go to OSINT Technical once again, and we did get a video showing the Iranian ballistic missiles screaming back into the lower atmosphere as they did descend toward Tel Aviv during the same attack that we just saw the damage from a moment ago. So let's take a look at this video. It's actually quite crazy to see. So let's see the missiles screaming in. And as you can see right there, there are the missiles flying in. And this is a rare daytime attack by the Iranians where you can actually see the missiles in the daytime here along the blue sky. And there are clearly the missiles flying in. Huge streaks of them right there. And there's some more coming in as well. They're coming out of their higher atmosphere, I guess you could say flight pattern, and they're coming straight back down to the lower atmosphere. So that's why they're looking like that here on camera. So once again, very devastating. And these attacks were pretty much targeting civilians that happened right after we ended the stream last night. And of course, that was the daytime, the morning hours for Israel. So we did see that right here on camera, a very unfortunate piece of footage right there. But moving into our next post, this one goes to Inside Geopolitics. And we did get an overall damage report of this attack that we saw in the morning time, the morning hours in Israel last night. The 10 impact sites were reported in Tel Aviv, and that is currently what we know from this attack. So 10 impact sites, that's a little bit higher than usual. It sounds like a lot of these missiles made it through the Iron Dome and also Israel's air defense systems, including the David Sling, and it sounds like there was a sort of a failing in the air defense inside of Israel. So once again, we had heard that the Americans were helping to restock the interceptor missile stockpiles inside of Israel, so that way they could intercept these incoming Iranian ballistics. But it sounds like either there's been some hiccup, maybe they're running out of interceptors, or something's happening, but it sounds like 10 impact sites is quite high, so that's not good news. But generally speaking, though, the Israelis are putting the hurt back on the Iranians for conducting this attack today. So moving on to our next post here, this one goes to Israel War Room. Meanwhile, we've gotten a nationwide United States alert alert from the Department of Homeland Security about warnings of attacks by Iranian and pro-Iranian actors in the United States today. And we can see right here in this bulletin from the Homeland Security Department, there's clearly an ongoing threat based on this Iran conflict of United States sleeper cells being activated by the Iranians and potentially conducting attacks against U.S. networks. So this is not good either. Obviously, this was expected as well. Always remain vigilant when you're in public places these days because, of course, the Iranians do probably have people here. We have been notified by Homeland Security that the risk is rising significantly. So always be on the alert when you're in public right now, and especially in recent times, because it looks like the risk is certainly rising rapidly. And of course, that is a major concern that they might conduct attacks here in America, which of course could be a real possibility. So always be on alert, and that is the big news from Homeland Security right this second. Also, we have one more article before we actually round out this video right here that just came in as I was finishing up the video, so let's cover this as well. We did get some satellite footage right this second from the Isfahan nuclear facility inside of Iran, and this footage just came out. We're seeing the aftermath of the U.S. Navy Tomahawk missile strike on this facility in Isfahan, so let's take a look here at the footage. And as you can see, here is a before photo of the facility. This is Isfahan right now inside of Iran, and you're about to see the after photo right here. So this facility was targeted by U.S. Tomahawk missiles launched from one of our submarines in the area of responsibility, and as you can see, there's a lot of damage here on this facility by those Tomahawk missiles, and it looks like this facility was largely destroyed in a large way. So there's some footage from Isfahan, and I was glad I was able to get that before we ended the video so we can basically round out all three nuclear sites and what the damage looked like from all three of them. But with that, folks, that is actually our last post of the video. So I hope you found this video informative, and if you did, press the like button and also subscribe to the channel as well for more breaking news updates just like this one. And also, if you want to support the channel financially, you can do so on our Patreon page, and the link is in the description below for Patreon, where you can go over there and sign up for a monthly membership and help keep the channel running through your viewer support. And of course, that does mean a lot to us, and that support is what helps us to stay on the air. So thank you all to our Patreon subscribers for helping to make this all possible. And in the meantime, we will see you all live maybe early today or maybe at our normal time at 10 p.m. Eastern. We're not sure just yet. It depends on the breaking news happening throughout the day. But in any case, we will see you later on this evening. And with that, bye-bye for now.